CapitalFarmCredit.com. I'm Evan Wren, and this is the Capital Farm Credit Wednesday Night Podcast, our weekly look at the area athletic scene, what happened last week, and what's going on this week. I'm here with my partner, Dan Youngblood, via Zoom. And Dan, tonight we've got one of the truly nice guys in the big country, one of the nicest coaches you'll ever meet, James Morton from Eastland.
Yeah, a great guy and a really good football coach. He's got the Eastland Mavericks rolling right now. That's a team that is putting up a ton of points. They're starting to play some defense. And really right now I think you got to consider them a threat in this region the way they're playing. But they've gone through some adversity. They had some disciplinary issues early in the season, then had some issues with COVID. They've gotten through that, and they're playing their best football of the year. And right now they're not a team that anybody wants to play come playoff time. So I think this has probably been one of Coach Morton's better coaching jobs in his career, just in terms of everything that they've had to kind of overcome and to get them playing at this level this quickly. So it's going to be fun talking to him about this season and about really, I think, kind of what he thinks this team can do, because it looks pretty special right now.
Eastland has become the football team that we expected them to be. Once they got everybody back from the discipline issue and from COVID, they've won 5 straight games after an 0-3 start, and they're averaging 60 points per game in that stretch. And that's not like they're playing a bunch of cupcakes. They've beaten the top 3 playoff contenders in their district. They've beaten Millsap, they've beaten Comanche, they've beaten Jacksboro. There's some really great teams in there. They've beaten Panhandle.
You mentioned in that district, they're in what I think has turned out to be one of the tougher districts, certainly in this region, but I think one of the tougher districts probably just statewide in terms of the different types of teams you see. But when you think about that row of games that you just talked about, Millsap, Comanche, Jacksboro, I mean, these are 3 good football teams.
Yes.
That really test you in different ways, and to not only go out and put up 30 plus points on both really good defenses from Comanche and Jacksboro, but to bottle those teams up offensively and play some really strong defense in those games as well, so that they could win them comfortably. I think that's a good sign for them. This Eastland team's playing really, really well, and it's gonna be fun to see what they can do the rest of the way.
Yeah, well, this team isn't unlike a 3A version of Sweetwater. They're playing progressively better defense. Mm-hmm. And this football team, I'm telling you right now, that with the points they're putting up right now, if their defense is giving up 30, 35 a game, they're going to be very hard to beat. They're going to be extremely hard to beat at this level. There's very few teams that can hold them under that in the Class 3A level. And right now they're starting to get to that point where they're playing defensively. They're playing well enough to get just that handful of stops, and that's all they need. That's all they need.
And really, the last couple of games against both Comanche and Jacksboro, they're making a lot more than just a handful of stops. I mean, they shut out they bottled up Jacksboro, and I mean to hold that team to the point till they did, I think is really, really impressive. So. I think it's interesting. I think that you can make a case that this team has really kind of come together over the course of the season. And I'm not going to say that the issues at the early point in the season were necessarily a good thing, but I think that just the things that they kind of did have to bunker down and come together and continue to fight through some early struggles, I think probably has helped them. And now they're kind of on the other side of that and really playing as a very cohesive unit in all phases. So this is a dangerous team, no question about it.
All right, we're going to be talking a lot more about the Eastland Mavericks here in a bit when Coach Morton joins us here on the show. And before we jump into the rest of tonight's show, we want to thank our primary sponsor, Capital Farm Credit, with offices all over Texas, including Stanford and Abilene. Buy your own slice of Texas with Capital Farm Credit. Together, we're better. And with that, it's time to talk about the top ball games of last week. We'll begin with the locals. And Dan, I'll tell you what, you saw a great ball game. The Abilene Eagles topping Odessa Permian. None of us got it right on the picks, but you thought it was going to be pretty competitive.
Yeah, Abilene High wins that one 27-25 in what was just a great football game. And you are right, I picked Permian, so I was wrong. I'll start there. But I did, if you remember last week. At
least I lived long enough to see that, ladies and gentlemen. An admission he's wrong.
Get out of here. But yeah, so I did, if you remember on this podcast last week, I said I like this matchup to be competitive for Abilene High. And I told several other people the same thing. And the reason for that is pretty simple, is that Abilene High, under Coach Mike Fullen and his staff, has traditionally defended run-based offenses really, really well. They've done a really good job, particularly against triple option offenses. We've seen that in their game with Amarillo Tascosa each of the last 3 years, where those have been one-score games that really could go either way. And Permian runs a pretty similar offense. It's a triple option offense, and it was just a deal where Abilene High I mean, they did what they do against those types of offenses. I was, looking a little dumb after Permian went for 75 yards on their first play from scrimmage and scored. But after that, really, it was kind of what I expected. Everything was tough. They had to work for everything. And Abilene High shut them out in the second half, which is just a huge deal. And that allowed 2 Anthony Ramirez field goals to serve as the winning points. So a huge game, and it was really kind of an interesting one there at the end. It got really pretty dicey for Abilene High down the stretch. One of their running backs, to King Thomas, had an apparent touchdown that would have put them up 2 scores with just a few minutes left. He stepped out of bounds by about an inch at the 13-yard line. Next play, he fumbles the ball away, and then Permian drives it from their own 15 to the Abilene High 5. But then on about a 3rd and goal play from the 10, they get an interception from a sophomore safety that just really allowed them to seal the victory with 1 first down. So just a huge team win for Abilene High, a really emotional win for Coach Mike Fullen. It was his first win since coming back, being back on the sidelines. This was his first time back in Shotwell Stadium since last year. So it was a good night. It was a really good night for Abilene High, a very strong performance. And I think one that kind of showed that team's fortitude, because they'd had a really kind of rough start to the season, going 0-3. They were coming off a really tough loss at St. Angelo Central, a game that not a whole lot of people thought they'd win. And they go out there and just play a great team game, come out of it with the win. And like I said, just a good night for Abilene High, a good night for Coach Mike Fullen. And hopefully this will get them rolling a little bit. I think this has a chance to kind of be one of those galvanizing type of wins.
All right. The Cooper Cougars also had another big win. They blew out Granbury 69-7. They came in as a 4-touchdown favorite in that ball game, but just absolutely blew Granbury out of the stadium. Did you see that coming?
Yeah, I thought Abilene High would win comfortably. 69-7. I'm not sure about that, but this was just one of those games where Cooper did everything well. I mean, they got a touchdown in all 3 phases. They got multiple touchdowns, obviously, offensively, but they got a pick 6 on defense. They had a blocked field goal return for a touchdown. So, I mean, it's just one of those nights where everybody was doing their jobs. And I think the big story in this one was the game that senior quarterback Aiden Thompson played. They were kind of, stacking the box to try to bottle up the running game, because obviously Cooper's running game has been so good with Noah Garcia. But and they kind of dared Cooper to pass, and Thompson made him pay for that. He threw for over 300 yards, threw for 4 touchdowns, and was just extraordinarily efficient. So a big night for the Cooper offense, and really a big night in all phases. That was a big win for them. And I think it's been kind of interesting, because this was a kind of a very inexperienced team to start the year. This was a team that had a whole lot of new guys filling important roles, and they're starting to click. I think Coach Rohn has done a great job with this team. And it looks like they're definitely one of the big dogs in that district, and it's going to be fun to see how they do finishing out.
All right, let's move out into the area, and we're going to start off in Class 1A, 6-man football. We have a big story going on this year that's kind of flown under the radar. The Westbrook Wildcats are off to one of their best starts ever, and we're talking about a team that was 4-6 last year. They've only had 3 winning seasons in the last 15. And they went into last week's ball game at 7-0, facing the second-ranked team in the state, Sterling City. And they had a shot at winning that ball game. Great ball game, but they came up short, losing 38-28 to Sterling City. Westbrook falls to 7-1, but still, Dan, a really remarkable story. Westbrook has literally just come out of nowhere, and we're talking about a team that still, even with this loss, we're talking about a team that's, potentially has the potential to go to Arlington.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting, because a lot of times in 6-man, what you'll see is these teams that kind of come out of nowhere will have a great record. And the first time they play a really elite team, you kind of get exposed a little bit, and you see that 45-point rule come into effect. So to go and play a Sterling City team that is an established team, this is an established program, yes, really a known commodity, and to play them to the wire. And
that was a winnable ball game. Yeah, that was a winnable ball game.
Yeah, any 6-man game that's decided by 10 points is a winnable ball game. That's a great ball game.
Yeah, you're looking at a 6-man game that's decided by 10 points. You're looking really at a coin flip.
Yeah,
you're looking at a coin flip.
So I think this tells you, even though they lost the game, this tells you Westbrook is for real. This is a really good team, and like you said, one of the best stories in the big country this year.
And moving on to Class 2A, a Division II matchup from last week. The Hico Tigers snapped a 7-game losing streak by shutting out Meridian. And this was an important district game for both teams, Dan. Hico with a big defensive effort coming through with the win. And, this is a team that – this is a school that they don't have the numbers that they've had in the past. And they're trying to build some depth and get some things going. Coach Thornton out there is trying to establish that, and that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, this is a huge win for the Tigers. This is one that they needed to have if they wanted to make the playoffs. So to not only go out there and get the win, but to get a shutout is a really big deal because, like you said, they were coming into this one really struggling. They'd had some lopsided losses during that 7-game losing streak, and they really played very, very well, particularly on the defensive side, and they got just enough offense. They got a couple of second-quarter touchdowns from Angel Gonzalez and Cooper Roach, and they got a field goal in the second half, and that was more offense they needed thanks to a great performance from the defense. So a big win for them, and now with a forfeit win this week over Ranger, that puts them in a great position now to grab that district's 4 spot. Meridian, which has one district win over Ranger, now has to beat they have to win both their last 2 games against Cross Plains and Santo to get in. So that's going to be a very tough challenge for them. And it looks like Hico has put themselves now in a great position to make the playoffs, which is a very positive step in a tough season.
And with that, we'll go to a Class 2A Division I game from last week. And I was hemming and hawing about this one, thinking that this might be the best game that we've got in the entire big country this week. And as it turned out, it really was a classic ball game. Hawley with a 21-20 win on the road at Anson, and they came from behind to do it. And that was a crucial matchup for Hawley. That was one that they had to have to win that district title that we picked them to win.
Yeah, I mean, this was just a fantastic game, and one that probably turned out a little differently than I thought it would. I thought there was going to be a little bit more offense than there was. As it turned out, neither team had more than 300 yards, and there were some really, it was kind of the defenses that told the tale. Both teams had a couple of turnovers that were really impactful, and really it was a turnover that got Hawley back into the game. They were down 20-7 in the third quarter, and they get a scoop and score that really turned the tide, and then that allowed them to win the game with a touchdown with about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But just a great game between 2 really good football teams. And, one of those teams had to lose. I'm sure this was a heartbreaking loss for Anson, given the fact that they had a 2-score lead into the second half. But you got to give credit to Hawley. That was a great win for them, and it's going to have to give them another chance now to close out a district championship season, which just, I think, underscores just the phenomenal job that Coach Mitch Abels has done with that program.
It was the 3rd straight win for Hawley. It was their 5th win in their last 6 games. And for Anson, it snapped a 2-game winning streak. If they fall to 5-2 and 2-1 in league play, but Anson's not out of the title hunt. If Forsan, which is a very capable football team, upsets Hawley, and that wouldn't be a huge upset by any stretch. It wouldn't be huge. But if they do upset Hawley, we could see a 3-way tie situation, and Anson's still in the running for a district championship. It's still possible because Anson already owns a win over Forsan.
Yeah, there's such parity. That was a close win, too. There's such parity in this district that you really can't, declare anything at this stage because, like you said, you wouldn't be really surprised at all if Forsan were to pull off the upset in that one and then create kind of a logjam there at the top. But in any event, Hawley's got to like where they stand. Now they're 1 win over Forsan away from claiming that district title. But you are right. They still got some work to do yet.
And that brings us to our Big Country Preps game of the week from last week. The Clyde Bulldogs coming away with a 33-20 win at Early. And really, it wasn't quite as close as the score would indicate. Clyde controlled from beginning to end in this ballgame. They capitalized on a couple of early mistakes and took a 10-0 lead. There was a huge wind blowing, as you know, all night long. And Clyde started with the wind to their back, got control of the ballgame, took advantage of the 2 turnovers or 2 mistakes, and really never relinquished it. They did play good defense, and Early prevented them from blowing the game wide open, but Clyde controlled that ballgame from beginning to end and played really well.
Yeah, and this is a big win for them now because now it obviously more than likely locks up that 3 spot, but gives them a chance now to play Wall for the number 2 spot, which should be an intriguing game. But I think the big thing here, and you mentioned it, was just the job that Clyde offense did in taking advantage of the wind. They passed the ball really well. Dylan Newman had over 220 passing yards, 3 touchdowns to go with another rushing score. So a big game for the senior quarterback there. And I think this was a big game for Clyde just in general because I think that there are a lot of people that thought Early was playing really well coming into this one. Early was a really fired up team, having more than likely locked up their first playoff berth in a while. So there's a lot of momentum on that side. And Clyde comes in there, takes care of business, and now gives them a chance to do some even bigger things down the stretch. So a good win for Coach Campbell and his team. And really, I think that was kind of an impactful one for this district race.
Yeah, well, Clyde keeps itself in district title contention with that win by coming away with it. They are now 3-0 in district. They host the Wall Hawks at home Friday night in what is a huge ball game. That's, I mean, that at the very least, that's going to be for the number 2 seed in that district. The winner of that will be, pretty much have the driver's seat for at least the number 2 seed, unless somebody can upset Jim Nett. So, it's a very important ball game coming up.
Yeah, and you're right, and I took it for granted because they still do have Jim Ned left as well. So if Clyde can beat Wall, all of a sudden that last game of the regular season gets very, very interesting. So,
and by the way, I heard from the Clyde players after that ball game. They were a little motivated by my early pick, early by 1, and they let me hear about it afterwards.
Yeah, well, I picked the Bulldogs, so they can at least take some solace in that one. But yeah, it was. I'm sure that
they won't hate all of us. All right, so
no,
there you go.
Only you. That one's all.
There you go. And with that, it's time to look ahead to this week's top ball games. We're going to start off with the locals. The Abilene Eagles will be traveling to Midland to face the Lee Rebels, and this is going to be. It's another one of those storied programs. They're playing well. Lee comes in at 3-1. Dan, it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, I think this will be a challenge, and it kind of for the reason we talked about a little bit earlier. Lee is a team that is more balanced in what they do offensively. They've typically had a pretty strong passing game the last several years, and that has kind of been Abilene High's weakness on defense, as we kind of saw at Central in their district opener. However, Lee was beaten by Permian in their district opener. They had the open date this past week, so they're going to be coming into this one with an extra week of preparation. So we'll see. Abilene High is going to be riding high off that win against Permian. They're going to have some confidence. They're going to be, like I said, playing, they should be a kind of a galvanized football team. But this is going to be a tough matchup, especially going on the road. However, I will make the point that the last time Abilene High went to Midland to play Lee a couple of years ago in a non-district game, they had a huge come from behind upset win early in the season. So it's not out of their own possibility, but this will be a tough matchup for them. They're going to have to go up there and play very well. This is a Lee team that's averaging almost 40 points per game. So Abilene High is going to have to move the ball. They're going to have to score to have an opportunity to win it. But we'll see. I think it's going to be a tough matchup for them. But I'm excited to see kind of how Abilene High responds coming off that win.
I think under normal circumstances in this matchup, the Eagles are going to be an underdog anyway. They're facing a Lee team that's going to be angry after getting beat by Permian, and they're coming off a bye week. They got 2 weeks to prepare. They're motivated. They've had time. I'm going with the Rebels.
Yeah, and I think that's the easy pick is to go with Lee, and I will probably. I'm going to go that route. I think I'm going to pick Lee to win, but I'm just excited to see kind of what Abilene High does. I think this is a team that's finally got a little bit of positive momentum after a slow start, and I'm just kind of interested to see where Coach Fullen and his team kind of go from here.
And with that, it's time to move to Class 5A Division I. The Cooper Cougars are going to be facing Fort Worth Arlington Heights on the road. Cooper comes in at 3-1, 2-0 in district with a 3-game winning streak, and they are playing really well, scoring a bunch of points. I like the Cougars in this matchup. Even though Heights comes in at 2-0 and they're moving the football, they haven't played. This could be their first game in 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's the thing is they're coming off a COVID 2-week quarantine period. Like you said, they've only played the 2 games. I think they've been one of this league's bigger surprises to date because not many people expected much of this group this year, but they did start 2-0. But what a tough assignment in your first district game, coming off a 2-week break from a COVID layoff. I don't think that they've got quite what it takes to hang with this Cooper team, but we will find out. I think I really like the way Cooper's playing really in all phases, but especially offensively. Aiden Thompson just had his best game of the season. Noah Garcia is as good as any running back as there is in the state. And they're starting that inexperienced defense isn't inexperienced anymore. They're starting to really play well. So I like Cooper, and I like Cooper to win this one pretty comfortably.
I'm going to go with the Cougars also. All right, now we're going to move over to Class 5A Division II. The Wylie Bulldogs, Dan, are going to be playing for the first time in a month, courtesy of COVID, and they've got a tough go. They've got Wichita Falls Rider on the road. Tell you what, you're facing a Wichita Falls Rider team that is 4-1 and explosive, coming off a 53-17 win last week over Wichita Falls, and you haven't played a month. That's going to be a challenge. It's really a pity that Wylie's had this huge layoff, and how do they overcome the rust and get over there and compete?
Yeah, this is a really tough way to get back from a 3-week layoff. mean, by the time this game kicks off, it'll have been almost a month from the last time that Wylie played. So I think you're right. We talked about the challenge that Fort Worth Arlington Heights faces, having to come off a 2-week break with Cooper. I think you could make a strong argument that this is even a tougher challenge for Wylie against a Wichita Falls Rider team that is absolutely loaded. They are 4-1. You mentioned that one loss, which was to a bigger Lubbock Coronado team, but I think the important thing to point out in that one, and it was lopsided, was that Rider was playing without their standout quarterback, Jacob Rodriguez, who is a D1 talent. He's a kid that's committed to Virginia. Very big kid, 6'3", 6'4", strong arm, very good runner. And I think that's going to be the challenge for Wylie is can they contain him and that Wichita Falls Rider offense. But that's kind of the part of this matchup that I'm most excited about, because this Wylie defense, in the 2 games they got to play, allowed a grand total of 2 touchdowns. I mean, they were playing extraordinarily well defensively. This is going to be a big test for them, and we're going to find out kind of what they were able to get accomplished during those 4 weeks that they weren't playing. But this is a tough way to get back on the field. But I know they're going to be so excited just to get back on the field that you're going to definitely have to – the Wichita Falls Riders is going to have to play a hungry Wylie team. I think it'll come down to whether it's a Wylie team that's able to execute. And that's something you just never know coming off that big of a layoff. But I am eager to see how this one goes. I think we both have thought that this Wylie team, based on what they've done in their first 2 games against Brownwood and against Lubbock Monterey, that this Wylie team is clearly vastly improved. We'll find out just how improved they are against this Rider squad.
You got to love their defense, the way they play. And I think that Wylie's defense will give them a shot at competing in this ball game, but I do like Rider at home.
Yeah, I think you got to take Rider based on what both have coming back. But I do think it'll be interesting to see what Wylie can do. I think this is going to be a team that is very hungry and very motivated. And generally speaking, Coach Clyde Morton has done a very good job of handling these types of things. So, like you look at, obviously they had to wait a month to get on the field against a Brownwood team that had already played multiple games. They go on the road and get a big win there. We're going to kind of see if they can do it again.
And with that, we're going to move out into the area, Dan, and we're going to start off at the 6-man level, Class 1A, Division I. Huge rivalry. This is one of the biggest 6-man rivalry games that we have on an annual basis here in the big country. We got Hermleigh traveling to Ira. They're going to take on the Bulldogs on the grass field, their biggest rival. And guess what? Hermleigh has a shot at its first 10-0 season in 50 years. This is their best season, really, essentially, that they've had in a half century. And they're going to have to accomplish it, they're going to have to beat their arch rival on the road. And Ira is always tough at home, as you know. And here we go.
Yeah,
the Cardinals are taking them on. It's going to be an interesting matchup. Ira comes in at 6-2. Hermleigh comes in at 9-0, and the winner takes the district.
Yeah, it's pretty. That's a pretty big deal. I mean, this is a big game for both teams, obviously. But I think with Hermleigh's situation, with a chance to complete a undefeated regular season, that's just obviously a huge deal. You mentioned that Ira is a tough team at home. That's a tough team anywhere you play them, but especially on their home field. So we'll have to see how Hermleigh can do. But I think one thing that's been really pretty impressive the last few years is just what that athletic program has done as a whole. Their girls basketball program speaks for itself. I mean, teams that have either finished at the state tournament or at the in the regional championship games each of the last three or so years. Their boys basketball program's taken a big step forward, and now their football program is obviously having a fantastic year. So we'll see if they can complete this football season, this regular season, with another win and finish off a 10-0 regular season. But that would be very, very impressive.
All right, I think it's a tough game to pick, Dan. I mean, the computers like Ira to win this ball game. They are at home, and I understand that. But you know what? Hermleigh has outperformed computer projections all year long, and I'm going to let it ride. I'm going to go with an upset here. I'm going to take the Cardinals on the road to win.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a bad pick. I'm not sure I have the guts to do it. I'll probably go with Ira just based on the fact that they are playing at home and are coming off a really nice win over a solid Rotan team. But when you look, Hermleigh beat that same team. So you look at common opponents, and it's really there's not a whole lot of difference. I'm just going to go with Ira based on the fact that they're playing at home, and just based on the fact that they've been in more of these types of games. So we'll see how it goes. But I don't think your pick's a bad one at all.
And we'll now move up to Class 2A D2. This is going to be in District 8. Big ball game. We've got a solid Cross Plains team, one of the better teams that they've had in quite a while, heading out to Albany to face the Lions at Robert Nell Stadium, which is never an easy task. And really, I mean, the winner of this ball game is probably going to be your district champion.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is a big ball game for both teams. And it's going to be one of those interesting kind of COVID-impacted games in that Cross Plains has not played since October 9th when they got a big win over Santo to kind of set this one up as a district title-type game. So other than the one hiccup that Cross Plains had against Haskell where they committed to several turnovers and kind of were upset that way, and then Albany's one loss to an elite Hamlin team, neither team has lost outside of those two games. So you got two teams with a lot of momentum, both teams come into this one playing well. It's kind of going to be, I think, kind of the established power in Albany versus a team in Cross Plains that's trying to kind of step into that stratosphere. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a fun game. I think Cross Plains comes into it with an outstanding defense. So I think that they're going to have I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring game than maybe what Albany's been used to. The question for me is, can Cross Plains put up enough points in this one to beat this Albany team, which has a lot of weapons? So we'll see.
All right. Well, it's a tough game to pick. But I'll say this. Cross Plains has a shot at winning the ball game if they run the football well like they usually do, and if they play well defensively like they usually do. They'll keep it close and give them a shot at winning. And if the game's close, anything can happen. However, history, as you know, is not on Cross Plains' side. They are overall 2-25-1 against Albany, 2-25-1. And they've lost 21 straight games to the Lions, and that dates back to 1935. This series goes way back intermittently. They don't play every year, but they have played several times, and they've lost 21 straight. The last time that Cross Plains managed to top Albany was in 1934, way back.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be one of the big challenges that they're going to face. Like I said before, I think that the Cross Plains is going to have to find a way to score some points because you're not going to shut Albany down. So Cross Plains is going to have to find a way to score some points to win this one. And I think the big challenge they're going to face is more psychological in nature. I think they're going to have to find a way to convince themselves going into this game that they belong on the field with this Albany program and that
Yes.
they can beat this Albany program on its home field. And that's something that they've struggled with in the past because Cross Plains has had really quality teams the last several years, and this matchup has not gone their way, like you said. So I think the interesting thing will be with this particular team, which had the hiccup against Haskell, which I think honestly may have been a good thing in that it kind of refocused this team. It took some of the distractions away with the rankings and those sorts. Can they continue that role, and can they go on the road and beat a really good Albany football team on their home field? So I think that's the challenge.
I think getting yardage on the ground, being able to slow the game down, playing well defensively, and winning the turnover battle is what gives Cross Plains a shot at winning these. Those are the three big keys. They don't want to get in a shootout with that Albany offense. I think those are the three big keys for them. History is not on their side. It's difficult to pick Cross Plains this year. I'm going with Albany.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Albany as well. But one thing I will be interested to see is just how well this Cross Plains defense can do against this Albany offense. Because I do think that this Cross Plains defense is a very legitimately good unit. And if you look last week, Albany against Santo, Albany really struggled for a half to score against that Santo defense. So if Cross Plains can do the same thing, get off to the same type of start that Santo did, I'll be interested to see if Cross Plains maybe can get all the way to the finish line. But, yeah, I'm going to go with Albany in this one. I think that you got to go with tradition at this point.
All right, now we're going to move up to Class 3A, District 4, and this is in Division 2. The Coahoma Bulldogs, Dan, have one of their biggest games of the year. They did play at Idalou, but this week they've got a crucial district game against Lubbock Roosevelt at home. The Bulldogs come in at 6-1 and 2-1. Roosevelt coming off its first loss of the year last week against Abernathy that saw them lose due to a couple of late turnovers. In a game that was really tight in the fourth quarter. Roosevelt comes in at 7-1 and 2-1. The winner of this is going to be in line for a 2 or a 3 seed. This is going to be a very important matchup, especially if you want to make a deep playoff run. You want to get those high seeds. So this is very important for Coahoma.
Yeah, I agree. This is one of two big games that Coahoma has to finish their regular season schedule. They've got Lubbock Roosevelt this week, a vastly improved Roosevelt team, and they finished the season with a road trip to Abernathy, which is never easy. So I think that Coahoma's clinched their spot in the playoffs, I think, but at this point you want to make sure that you finish the regular season A, with a good seed, and B, with a little bit of momentum. So I think this is a big game for the Bulldogs against a team that has played some very good defense to this point. They had, like you said, the loss last week. to Abernathy and one where there was kind of turnover plagued late. But this is a good Roosevelt team coming to Coahoma. So I'll be interested to see just, what Coahoma does this week. The one thing that I think will help them is they're coming off a very big win. They kind of put things together in a 60-0 win over Reagan County last week. So they've got a little bit of momentum going into this one. They're at home. We'll see how it goes.
Tough pick, a very difficult pick. I view it as virtually a toss-up, but I'm leaning Roosevelt right now. I'm going to go ahead and take Roosevelt. That is coming off what for them was a bitterly disappointing loss. I think that they're going to bring maybe a little bit better effort this time, and they're going to win in a very, very close game. It's going to be tight. I'll go with the Eagles at Coahoma.
I like this. I agree. I think this is a tough pick. I'm going to go with Coahoma, being at home, coming off a big win. I think I like this team. I think this Coahoma team has figured out how to win close, tight games. They've been able to get out and run a few times. I like what Coach Jocelyn has done with this program, and I agree it's going to be a tough game. But at home, I'm going with the Bulldogs.
All right, now we're going to move over to District 5 3A D2, and we got a big ball game, Dan. The Comanche Indians are going to be heading over to Jacksboro, and the winner of this ball game, in my opinion, really is going to lock up the number 2 seed in that district in all likelihood. This is going to be a very important game between two ground and pound teams. And the way I see it, and they play, they both, Jacksboro runs the double wing, Comanche runs the wing T. We'll be lucky to have 4 possessions a half, 5 possessions a half. So mistakes are going to be at a premium. There's going to be very few opportunities in this game for either team. And I mean, it could hinge on one fumble. It could hinge. It's going to be that close because the clock's never going to stop in this ball game.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be old time football. You're going to see two teams that are going to try to employ some similar tactics, and are both going to come into this one wanting to control the football and wanting to control the clock, and that's
and they're both good at it.
They're both very good at it. These are two teams that have been doing this a long time. These are two teams that have played quite a few times in the recent past. So I think this is a fun matchup. You look, both these teams are coming off back-to-back games against Eastland, where Comanche lost in a 14-point game, 31-17, where Jacksboro last week had a little bit more trouble. They lost by 4 scores. So I like this Comanche team based on the defense they're playing, but this is a good Jacksboro team. They're 5-3, but that record's a little bit deceiving when you look at who they've lost to. They've lost to Boyd, which had not lost until last week when they got beat by Brock, which is the top-ranked team in Class 3A Division I. They lost to Wellington, who is still undefeated, and Wellington's always that's a regional power. They're always good. And then last week they lost to Eastland, who we've been talking about all show, and we're going to continue talking about them. So this is a Jacksboro team that their only losses are to really, really good football teams. Against the Comanche team, for which the same is true, their only losses to Eastland as well. I like Comanche just based on the fact that they've played a little bit better defense. Both are pretty similar offensively. Comanche they've played outstanding defense, to be real honest. Other than that Eastland game, where Eastland scored 31 points, they've been bottling up just about everybody. I like their chances to do the same against Jacksboro, but it's gonna be a tough game, and this is one that Comanche has had a little bit of trouble with in the past. I like them to get over that hump and get the win.
Gotta hate it when I agree with you. I'm going with Comanche also, and I'm going with them for the exact same reasons you are. I think that they are just a little bit better defensively. Now, Jacksboro has played probably the tougher schedule, top to bottom, just slightly. But I think that you're looking at a Comanche defense. If they get that, if they don't turn the ball over and they get that ball rolling, those chains rolling, they've got a really stout defense behind it. They win the field position game, and they, at the end of the night, they just have more points than you do. They're good at what they do, and because of that defense, I'm leaning Comanche.
Yeah, same here. I think it should be a fun game, though. I like this series for kind of the reasons we talked about at the beginning. These are two teams that they're not identical, but they're similar in the way they operate, and both teams feel very good and very strong about the things that they do. So it's kind of fun. These are two teams that play with conviction in what they do and are very good at it. So I think this is going to be a fun matchup. And if you're going to this game, get there on time, because if you're 45 minutes late, you're going to miss the first half.
Yeah, and if I'll tell you, if you don't get to the concession stand early, you might go hungry, because this thing's going to lock up early, and it's going to be over before you know it. I would be a 9 o'clock ending. A 9 o'clock ending is not impossible. 9:30, I don't think it's going to last to 10. I just don't think there's any way it's going to last that long. But it should be a fun one, and
Barn
Yeah,
burner. It's going to be
for fans of old style football, this is perfect for them.
For sure. No question.
And finally, we've got our Big Country Preps game of the week. Dan, this is a game that we've been looking at really since before the season started. We had this one circled on the calendar, thinking that Ballinger Bangs might end up being a humongous ball game. And here we are, week 10, and it is. It's a huge ball game. The winner of this ball game will be the district champion, and Ballinger's at home. But Bangs has come in at 7-0. They are 3-0 in district. Ballinger at 8-1 and 3-0. There's going to be a lot of fireworks. This is going to be an interesting ball game.
Yeah, this is one that, like you said, we've been talking about really all year. We kind of had this one circled on our calendar as being a game that was going to be a really big matchup. As soon as we saw what type of team Bangs had, we said, hey, this is going to be a big game. And I think, it is. This is a huge game. These are two teams that are playing really, really well going into it. They do things a little bit differently. Ballinger's more of kind of a workman-like defensive team. They're going to score enough points, but they're not as explosive as Bangs is. But both these teams have been very good defensively, and I think it's just going to be a fun matchup. You got a lot of different storylines here. Obviously, the biggest one is just that both teams are very good, and both teams are coming in with a lot of momentum. But then you've got Coach Chuck Lipsey on the Ballinger sideline, who was one of the most successful coaches that Bangs has had in recent history. So you've got that element to it. And then just I've just been interested all year in just the turnaround job that has happened at Bangs. I think that's just been a remarkable job there. And this team's fun to watch. You got the Ethans in the backfield. You've got some really good receivers on the edges. And then you've got a defense that has been kind of the unsung heroes all year. So I like this matchup. This is one I think is going to be really fun. I think you're going to have a very fun game to watch on Friday.
One thing to note, Bangs has not allowed more than 19 points to anyone all year, and to no one. Ballinger's going to have to top that mark to win this ball game because nobody has stopped that Bangs offense. And I don't know that really you can't really count on shutting them down because they have speed all over the field. Yeah. Ethan Cortez is quick. Ethan Sanchez is quick. Wiedemann's quick. They have about 5 or 6 guys that can run 4.6 or better. So they create problems. They get out in space, and before you know it, they're by you for one big play after another. And that's going to be the problem facing Ballinger. They're going to have to tackle these guys in space. And if they can't tackle them in space, then they're going to have to keep up offensively against a defense that hasn't allowed more than 19 points to anybody. So this Bangs ball club's played exceptionally well, and I knew they'd be a lot better, but this good, I didn't think they'd be this good.
Yeah, I don't think either of us were talking about them having the potential of having an undefeated regular season, but at this point, that's definitely a possibility. I think that the big matchup is what you just kind of mentioned, an explosive Bangs offense that is so balanced that they can pass, they can run, and they're really difficult to stop against a Ballinger defense that has been outstanding all year long against a quality schedule. This is the only team so far this year that has beaten Jim Ned, which is obviously a big feather in their cap. This Jim Ned team has been outstanding, and that was a big win for them in the season opener. But Bangs has some signature wins on their resume as well. So I'm excited to see how this one turns out. I think it's going to be a really fun game. I'm going with Bangs. I just love what this team's done all year long. What Coach Maxfield has built there has been really, really impressive. It's an exciting team. It's an explosive team. And again, like I said before, it's a team that has been really good defensively, and that defense probably hadn't got as much recognition as it deserves just based on how explosive the offense is. But I think it's going to be a good game. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if Ballinger won, so I don't think it's going to be a lopsided outcome. But I just love this Bangs team. I like what they're bringing into this one.
I like Bangs as well. A lot of people are going to be talking about the matchup between the Bangs offense against the Ballinger defense, which indeed is going to be an interesting matchup and a good one. But I think the crucial matchup of this game is going to be Ballinger's offense against Bangs defense. Ballinger is going to have to find a way to move the football against that Bangs defense and keep pace with the Bangs offense, which I don't know is really if anybody in this area can really slow down that much speed. That's going to be the problem. Ballinger is going to have to be able to keep up with them and put points on the scoreboard. That's going to be the key matchup. Can Ballinger score on that Bangs defense? That's where the game, in my opinion, will be decided. I'm going to go with Bangs on the road based on offensive firepower.
And same here. And that you just mentioned, can Ballinger keep up? that was something a question that Sonora had going into a game that we talked about last week as being kind of maybe a trap game for Bangs, and Bangs just wiped the floor with them. They were no match for him. So, and that was in between a game that they knew was coming up the following week against Ballinger. So this is a focused Bangs team. It's a very good Bangs team, but I don't want to shortchange Ballinger because I like this team a lot as well. But I just think that right now the way Bangs is playing, it's hard to pick. It's hard to pick anybody over him right now.
And with that, it's just about time to bring on tonight's guest, Eastland head football coach James Morton. But before we do that, we want to thank some of our sponsors, beginning with our primary sponsor, Capital Farm Credit, who brings you these Wednesday night podcasts free of charge throughout the school year. And also for the Love of the Game broadcasting, our old friend Terry Slavens, owner of K-Lakes 93.5 FM out of Breckenridge, KATX 97.7 out of Eastland. Classic Country AM 1330 out of Graham, 94.7 FM KWKQ out of Graham, KROO 1430 out of Breck, and 98.5 FM KWBY out of Ranger. That is for the Love of the Game broadcasting. And also the Forsan Oil Patch Cafe, big supporters of the Forsan Buffaloes. Every town in the big country has that little place that everybody says that's the place to go and eat. Well, in Forsan, it is the Oil Patch Cafe. Some of the best home cooking around. Check it out, the Forsan Oil Patch Cafe. And finally, Jack's Road Boring in Snyder. Dirt sales and services with experience and service you can count on. Larry Green is the man to phone out there. Give him a shout at 325-575-8004. That's Jack's Road Boring in Snyder. And with that, Dan, it's just about time to bring on head football coach of the Eastland Mavericks, James Morton, a guy we both like. He's always pleasant. He's always polite. Just a gentleman.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those coaches in this area that you and I really enjoy working with. He's just kind of the prototypical big country coach, a guy who does his job well and who's just a great guy. So it's going to be fun getting him on. It looks like he's just about ready. So let's get him on here.
And joining us now from Eastland, head football coach of the Mavericks, James Morton. Coach, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be here. Great evening. Got that cold front coming in, so we're excited about it all.
And, Coach, we'll just start off the top. Y'all are playing great football right now, coming off a 5-game winning streak, during which y'all played a really tough stretch of district games against Millsap, Comanche, and Jacksboro. Passed all those tests really with flying colors. So I guess you just got to be pretty pleased with the way your team's playing. Can you just kind of talk about what you've seen during that stretch?
Yeah, I think it's been good. I think probably the biggest thing I've noticed is that we're playing more together as a team. I know that's kind of cliche-ish, but really, it's really cool to see guys on the sideline that aren't playing and plays being made on the play, and the guys on the sideline are excited about the things that are happening on the field. And I think that, that all carries over and adds volume to what you're trying to do as a coach. And I think our guys are doing a great job of, like I said, playing together as a team. And, we're just kind of clicking at the right time. There's still so many areas that we've got to improve in. Our offensive line's got to get better. Probably the biggest improvement we've seen right now is with our defense. Overall, as a unit, I think we've made some strides there. Still got to get better in that area, but overall, I think our defense has taken some big leaps forward.
Coach, let's talk about the beginning of the season. How difficult was it for you from your perspective to do what was necessary? You had a little bit of a discipline issue there to take care of that. That's a challenge for you too. It's never easy, but you had to do it.
Oh yeah, no, it's good. Actually, Evan, I think one of the quotes we have our kids memorize is, "With adversity comes the opportunity for greatness." And at the moment, it was tough for sure. I mean, it was more than just a little bit. It was probably 11, 12 players. Beginning of the year, we're not playing against the wall. And so that was, it was tough, but, in running an athletic program, you got to also see the bigger picture, and you can't, knee jerk, and you can't be involved in just the moment of the situation. And, looking down the road at the 7th graders, the 8th graders, and, you're setting a standard in place for your program. And I think it's real important that, that standard of what you want it to be matches the decisions that you make. And, it's part of the deal. But, at the end of the day, I think, if it wouldn't have happened and we go through the year, we're not playing as good a football as we're playing right now. And I think that's because the adversity and everybody knew what the standard was going to be. and what our expectations were as coaches. And that being said, then everybody kind of jumped on board and said, well, this is what we got to do. And so, it's ended up being a positive. Obviously, we've got a lot more up ahead of us that we've got to accomplish, but I think we're in a good groove right now.
Even for your younger players, did they get more of a sense of togetherness from this?
Yes, I think they definitely did. I think there was some younger players that were involved in it and were affected by it also. But I think, like I said, when you start making decisions and 7th and 8th graders say, well, that's the standard, or even a 6th grader or a 5th grader, in smaller schools, that echo happens a lot sooner in your program when you make decisions like that. And so I think everyone's, definitely aware of what our standards and what our expectations are for our students and athletes and what we expect from them. And so, I think it definitely reached those younger guys for sure.
Okay. And Coach, since that 0-3 start and the game that y'all had canceled, I mean, the offense is just putting up a ton of points, really kind of clicked during that 5-game winning streak. I guess just what have you seen? How exciting has it been to see your offense be able to really execute at that level?
It's, obviously it's been good. And, I think early on we had to execute just because defensively we weren't where we need to be. And I really think it wasn't so much as a defensive deal. I think it was more of a program thing. You go 91-70, 71 to Panhandle. And part of that's guys are playing that aren't in great shape, and we've got to have kids that play both ways, Dan. And so I think what I'm trying to say is that there was guys that just need to get in better shape. And, when they're playing on offense, well, then they got to go play on defense, and they just got to, know that that's where they need to be and that they've got to make plays. And as we got in better shape, I think, part of it obviously is they got more familiar with the scheme, and coaches did a great job of getting them ready. But part of that is, they know that our tempo offensively of what we're going to do, and they've got to meet that. And I think it ended up helping us long-term because offenses that we were playing were worn down because those guys were also playing on defense. And I think our guys were in better shape with that.
Okay. And one thing that I've noticed about your team, and part of this is that y'all had to play some extra kids early in the season, but the depth at that receiver position is pretty remarkable for a school your size. I think y'all had 7 receivers that already have at least 100 yards receiving, which part of that just kind of speaks to the job that Barron's doing spreading the ball around. But how beneficial is it to have that many guys that you can use and can utilize and the defenses have to account for?
Well, I do think that the offensive coaches do a great job of staying balanced, and where it's one of those things where they can't focus on one receiver and taking the entire offense away. And part of that with quarterbacks going through reads, making sure that they make the adjustments that they need to make to go along with that. But we do, to be real direct with your question, I think we do have some depth at receiver that allows us to get guys off the field and rest them and have them better prepared on the defensive side of the ball too.
Subject of defense, Coach, your defense is starting to come around. You've played pretty well over the last couple of weeks, and with the way your offense is playing, I mean, if you look at it in relative terms, if you keep producing the way you are offensively, I mean, a 30-point night defensively is actually, with all the possessions in your games, pretty fair defense, and you'll win a lot of ball games if you hold the opposition to that many.
Yeah, I think you're really on, Evan. And I think that's really big for us moving forward, is that we continue to improve in that area. And I think our defense is kind of focused in, and I think we're making strides there. I think another thing that's helped us, just in the Jacksboro game alone, there's 5 turnovers. And we've been able to force turnovers, and knock on wood, but so far we haven't really turned the ball over that much offensively. And so our, turnover ratio has been in a positive number too. And I think that helps us, because obviously you're getting the defense on the field and you're giving the offense another chance to go score.
Coach, what does it mean to you to be coaching your son in his senior year? This will be the last time you get to work with him.
It's good. I mean, we've had some bumpy roads. I mean, going back to his freshman year, and I have a high standard, and obviously with the decisions that I've made in the past, doesn't really matter about what the last name is. I'm going to hold people to a high standard, and I think Barron is definitely in that category. But and I say that from his freshman and sophomore year of just not being really great or as good as he should be with his progressions on his passing game and those kind of things. But what is really kind of evolved into now, Evan, is it's probably the most enjoyable time that I've had with him, because he really is. People say that he's an extra coach on the field, or you hear that cliche, and I mean, he understands what we're doing with our scheme, and it's actually just fun from talking to him about schemes and what he sees and what I see, and sometimes his ideas, I hate to admit, might be a little bit better than my idea, and then sometimes my ideas better than his idea. But it's fun to collaborate. We have quarterback meetings during the week, all that. So it's been positive. It's been fun all along, but actually this year has been a lot more positive.
And Coach, I think as soon as kind of the UIL alignment came out and we'd seen that y'all were dropping to Division II, I think a lot of people were really excited about what this team could do and those sorts of things. What do you see as kind of being this team's potential? I think y'all are kind of like you said, hitting your stride at the right time. How good do you think this team can be as you keep going forward?
Well, I think you're on a really good question for us, and that's kind of our quest. Is we've got still a pretty significant gap that we've got to close. I think it starts with our offensive line, and how good they become is going to allow us to decide, kind of our playoff fortune, and where we end up in the playoffs, and how deep we can go in those kind of things. I mean, at each position, that's what we kind of did this past Saturday, is had the kids grade themselves and about what they can do to get better. And I think it's all about closing the gap this time of the year. But, I think this could be a really special group for us. Each week you got to continue to improve. And, that's what I'm trying to get them to see, is it's not necessarily about your opponent. It's about, did we close the gap, and then did we get better in those areas that we identified as a position group that we need to get better. And if you start closing that and you're not focused on the outcome of the scoreboard, then you have a chance to be really special. And so it's tough in today's world, and just because everybody just wants to focus, did you get the W? And, the W sometimes can lie to you. And I think we've had some games this year where we did win a game, but I didn't really feel like that we were very clean. And so just cleaning those kind of things up, I think we have a chance to really have a great year moving forward. And, our goal is always to win a district championship and play December football and then play in a state championship. And so take those one at a time, and we'll see where we land.
Coach, let's take a look at Region 2, where you are situated. Looking it over, considering the way you guys are playing at the moment, I like your chances in Region 2. I'm not saying you're going to win Region 2, but I think you've got just as good a shot as anybody else in that region of getting out. You've got Gunter, you've got Holliday, Bells is still in there, and they're playing really well. Comanche's still going to be a problem, and all that. But what's your assessment of the region and your chances?
Obviously having a chance to play Holliday early in the year kind of gave us a barometer of how the region would be. I know that they've gone toe-to-toe with those guys each year. And so, I think it's wide open. I really don't know a lot about the other teams. I know that Holliday played Bells and beat them. obviously Gunner is the marquee name. That's the one that I was referring to of Holliday playing Gunner here several times in the last few years. I've watched Canadian play Gunner too. And so they're obviously a quality opponent, but at that time of the year and especially in 2020, it's who's hot and who's healthy. And so, maybe we can stay hot and stay healthy with those things and see how we progress.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be keeping a close eye on you. Congratulations on this stretch here when you're playing so well. And I'm sure we will see you on the road eventually in the near future.
Thanks, Evan. I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate your coverage very much.
Appreciate it, Coach.
Thank you.
And that was Eastland head football coach James Morton, a great guy, just a true gentleman. I always enjoyed working with him.
Yeah, no question. Coach Morton's a great guy, and he's the type of guy I think that you want leading your football program if you're a high school football fan. So a guy who does things the right way, a guy who wins wherever he goes, and who really runs a good program that builds strong young men. So it was enjoyable talking to him about this year's team, kind of about what he thinks it's capable of and all those things. Because I think following that team, we're all kind of excited to see where it goes this season and just to see how far it can get. With Baron Morton leading the way, you're talking about one of the state's top quarterbacks at any level, and just a really explosive team all around. So, yeah, it was fun talking to Coach Morton, and like you said, it's always fun talking to him. So that was a good time. I was glad we could get him on.
And with that, it's just about time to wrap up the Capital Farm Credit Wednesday Night Podcast. But before we do that, we want to remind you that we've got 3 different subscription packages here at Big Country Preps. We've got a monthly for $5 a month. We've got a semi-annual that we knocked the price down. It's a 6-month subscription. We knocked that price down to $4 a month. And we've got an annual where we dropped that price down to $3 a month, $36 for a full year of Big Country High School athletic coverage. And also, we want to remind you to hit the subscribe button on YouTube. If you're a YouTuber and typically watch our videos there, just go ahead, please hit that subscribe button, and that way our videos will be ready and waiting for you every time you get on YouTube. But you can watch them on our homepage as well at Big Country Preps. That's fine. But if you prefer YouTube, please hit the subscribe button so it'll be ready and waiting for you.
And lastly, I want to remind you that if you ever see a photo you like in any one of our slideshows, it is available for just $7. You can click on that small shopping cart icon to the bottom right, follow that prompt, and purchase as many of those as you would like. But as you probably noticed while you're scrolling through the site, we take a whole lot of photos, and you can find even more in our archive. Make sure you check that out and just see what we've got from your favorite team. But that's something that we take a lot of pride in, and we're going to continue to do here at BigCountryPreps.com.
All Big Country, all high school, all the time. Welcome home.